What is going on, guys? Welcome back. If you ever wanted a preview of a preview, well, then you came to the right place. Because we're kind of here to talk about the fights this weekend. But we're going to kind of tie it into the Jose Aldo versus Henry Cejudo fight that a lot of people have been pushing back against. And as I was doing some research, there's some interesting parallels here. So, first of all, Jimmy, a lot of people are upset that they feel like Jose Aldo cut in line. Now, I'm a little bit different of the yoke because I feel that he beat Marlon Moraes. However, it's really not up to me. It's up to the judges, and right, wrong, or indifferent, that's whose hands he left it in. Dana is defending this fight, as he should. It's his promotion. I mean, like him or not, he's supposed to support the product, if nothing else. He does it in weird ways. He basically came out and literally said people are full of shit. It's going to be an incredible fight. And, this is the fight that Henry wants. He's the champ. He's not taking easy fights, and he wants to fight Cejudo, which, there's a lot there. I mean, number one, championship or not, right? Whether the belt is on the line or not, Henry Cejudo versus Jose Aldo, words are tough, is an incredible fight. I'm not upset with the fight. I'm upset that it's for a championship on a guy that's coming off losses, and it seems like, to me, maybe he's skipped in line. You look at, Jan comes in, he's undefeated in the UFC, he's got wins over guys like Faber and Rivera, John Dodson, who just looked impressive. Aljamain Sterling comes in off 4 wins. I'm one of the biggest Jose Aldo fans in the world, and I want to see him win a championship. I don't know that it's going to happen over Henry Cejudo, but at the same time, it's a weird place to be in MMA right now, Jimmy.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And the thing is that what fans, and I've talked about this before, but what fans don't like is essentially Dana White just nullified the Marlon Moraes decision, whether you believe he won or not. And thinking at the time, I thought he did, but Jose Aldo, I thought he won by a very slim margin. I thought it was a very close fight, but that it basically got nullified. That they have the power to go, we don't think that fight counted, so Jose Aldo's going to fight for the title. Now, remember, it's their prerogative who fights for a title. Period. End of sentence. Whoever they say, and that's Bellator, that's UFC, whoever they say gets a title shot, gets a title shot. And I think part of the frustration here is kind of being reminded of that in such a blatant way that I agree with you. I think Peter Yan is in front. I think Aljamain Sterling is in front. You could argue Marlon Moraes, coming off that win over Jose Aldo, is in front, even though he's already had a shot at the title. But it doesn't matter. Whatever they say goes. Now, I love Jose Aldo. It might be a great fight. He might even win. You don't know. The issue is that it's so in our face that there are no checks and balances. We think the rankings mean something. They don't. We think the outcome of a fight means something. It doesn't. Whoever fights for the title is whoever Dana White wants to fight for the title, and that's it. End of story. Now, his comments, denigrating the fans is one thing. What's hard for me to understand is I don't see Jose Aldo. Yeah, he's a big name. Yeah, it'll sell in Brazil. You can understand someone like Conor McGregor cutting in line, Ronda Rousey cutting in line. Is Jose Aldo as a ticket seller really worth the backlash from the fans? Is it going to do that much better than a Peter Yan fight? Is it going to do that much better than an Aljamain Sterling fight? I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird that this battle is being picked for a Jose Aldo who is, love him or hate him, he's on the back 9 of his career. So is it really worth that? I mean, how many more fights are you going to get out of him? So that's kind of, it's a little strange that they're kind of picking this battle, that this is the hill they want to die on. It's Jose Aldo. It's a little weird to me.
Well, everything you said there, in my opinion, can be summed up in one word: legitimacy. I mean, are we looking at a legitimate championship fight? The names at this level, at the UFC, is the upper echelon of MMA. We know that. There's no bad UFC fighter for the most part. There's no one that's going out and padding UFC records for the most part. However, at the same time, when you look at a situation like this, a lot of the storylines we want aren't displayed here. You don't have those multiple wins. You don't have that working your way up, that contender that has to overcome, dare I say, the storylines. The storylines to me are what makes it fun and interesting and engaging as a fan. I was a huge Jimmy Rivera fan. So watching Jan and Sterling, for that matter, both beat him meant something to me. I looked at Jimmy Rivera as a title contender until those fights. And that was his opportunity to either cement himself going forward or take 2 steps back. And now you have to rebuild. That's kind of the lineage that we've learned in all of sport, not just MMA, in all of sport in terms of combat. And for some reason, like you said, and I wasn't going to use the word, Connor, but since you did, yeah, there's a few people that have the ability, the authority, the power, if you will, the draw, the name, however you want to project it. There's a few people that can come in and say, hey, listen, I'm going to call my shot and you're going to follow my lead because I'm the one that's moving the needle. Like you said, in that case, it's really not either of these guys. I mean, sure, Henry Cejudo's trying awful hard, probably too hard, but he's just not that name. Why is he getting to pick who his contenders are? Because that just seems like no matter how you project it outward, when you let a guy pick his contenders, I'm sorry, you're spoon feeding him a division. Then that's all there is to it.
But I think that's total bullshit. Well, that's who Henry Cejudo wanted? No. I'm not saying he doesn't want that fight, but it's ultimately up to the brass of the UFC. It really is. So the idea that, well, that's what Henry wanted, I don't buy that for a second. Because Dana White has had no problem going to war with other champions and other fighters who wanted particular fights and him going, nope, you're fighting this guy. So the idea that Henry pushed for it so hard that they made it happen, I don't believe that. I don't. It's possible, but if the UFC puts the brakes on it, as I said, there are no checks and balances. If they say, no, you're not fighting that guy, you're fighting this guy. Well, then I won't fight. All right, then sit out for contractually as long as you want. Or we'll strip you, which they've done in the past. So I don't believe that, oh, well, that's what Henry wanted. What are we going to do? I don't know. No, I don't buy that at all.
I think it also happens to be conveniently, none of these are easy fights, okay? But the easiest path, the easiest path is Jose Aldo for a number of different reasons, and that's not a knock on him. This guy literally is a perennial contender in every sense of the word. It's just he's not coming in with the resume of recently dominating fights and showing what skills we know he has at the highest level, in large part because the guy has been through some absolute wars, and he's also been, around a couple times in terms of UFC and WBC fighting. So, age has caught up to him a little bit. Fights have caught up to him a little bit. It is very odd to me that this is where they went. But to transition over into this weekend, because very rare, we were discussing this a little bit before we came on, Yoel Romero, let me just ask you, without you looking, I had to look because I was doing some research, and I was really taken back by this. Can you give me Yoel Romero's last 2 wins off the top of your head?
Last 2 wins? Jacare Weidman? No. Luke Rockhold, because I was there. I called that fight. So Luke Rockhold. Who was before that? Before that was Weidman or Jacare? I don't remember the order of Weidman and Jacare.
Well, you did get even the bonus point for having all 3, but it was Weidman and Rockhold. Two guys of which now
yeah.
You wouldn't even, they're not even in the realm of title contender. I think that just goes to show how long it's been since he's had an over. But I'm not saying that he didn't go to war with Robert Whittaker. He most certainly did. I'm not saying in this case injuries haven't kind of plagued the path. But, you really at this point, no matter which way you want to discuss it or break it down, maybe you don't even have, Israel fight at this point. But Yoel Romero is going to come in off 2 losses into a championship fight. That's awful strange to have happen, much less, we talked about it before. I don't know, other than, if you look at recent MMA, I don't know that you see this all that often.
Yeah, man, you got to really go back. It happened a lot in Japan. It happened in the early days of MMA. For the old fans, Jorge Patino versus Pat Miletich. Patino came off 2 losses. Jose Landy Johns in both of them, I think. And then he fought Pat Miletich after a couple-year break. That's going way back. Yeah, in the old school days, it happened sometimes. Randy Couture got Tim Sylvia off a loss to Chuck Liddell, but it was only one. Yeah, it's very rare in modern MMA. But the pass I will give the UFC on this one is it was supposed to be Paulo Costa. And they had to find somebody quickly, and it happened to be Yoel Romero. This wasn't their first choice. This isn't a Jose Aldo situation where we're sitting there going, God, there are 2 or 3 other guys who are ready to go, who are healthy, who are right there, and they're choosing Jose Aldo over those guys. I don't see this with Yoel Romero. Supposed to be Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa had an injury, and so we got to find somebody else, and Yoel Romero's available. So to me, this one kind of gets a pass. It's just there isn't anyone available right now, and the issue is keeping Israel Adesanya, a young, hot champion right now, busy. Fans want to see him. Let's keep him busy. Yoel Romero happens to be the guy available right now. So he wasn't their first choice. There aren't really any other options. If you look at the 185-pound division, Robert Whittaker taking time off, and then obviously Paulo Costa with the injury, there just isn't anybody right now who could legitimately fight for the title except Yoel Romero, who, despite his losses, is incredibly dangerous. So he just happens to be the guy who's available right now. So I give them a pass on this one.
I mean, I agree to an extent. I mean, We're talking about a different situation, though, in my opinion, when you look at maybe GSP coming in, Bisping coming in for that matter. There's last second, oh my God, something happened. We got to fill this fight, which, I believe, did they not scrap a Amanda Nunes fight? I think they scrapped an Amanda Nunes fight, didn't they? Like a year, maybe a couple years ago, like right as it happened, there was an injury. I can't remember. Somebody's championship got scrapped right before they were supposed to fight. This one's going to have a lot of build up to it. And I agree with you. Yeah. Process of elimination only leaves you so many options, but nevertheless, to a point, you basically just said, hey, there's nobody left in the division. We're going to pick a name, not out of a hat, but we're going to pull a name here and put a card together. From a purists fans perspective, which I hate to break it to you, we always come from, that just kind of seems like the wrong way to go about it.
He's the most dangerous and viable, recognizable name available. He is. So I'm not hating on this choice just because it wasn't their first one. He happens to be the guy who's around right now. Very, very close fights with Robert Whittaker. So you can't say he's not a legitimate threat. This is not a walkover for either guy, actually. So I'm not hating on this one. Of course, I'd prefer a guy with some juice, meaning momentum, a couple wins. That guy just isn't there. They're going with what they have available right now. This was their second choice, probably a third choice. Paulo Costa, then Robert Whittaker in a rematch. This is their third choice, but it's what they're making the best they can with what they have available. It's not the case with the Jose Aldo fight, but in this one they are.
Someone is wincing that we didn't mention Yoel's age and we mentioned Jose's age, but to me, I'm not down on this fight.
It is not. It's not the years. It's the mileage. That's what people forget. It's not how many years are under you. It's how many fights are under you. And when it comes to going to war in fights for years and years and years, Yoel Romero got a late start in the sport. He got a very late start. Jose Aldo did not. It's not about how old he is. It's about the fights he's in and number one, how they worked out, but also how he fought in his youth. Explosive, high flying, high octane, put everything behind every punch. It was really so fun to watch, but that style takes a lot out of you. A lot out of you. So Yoel Romero, despite the years, doesn't have the mileage.
I guess just to preface slightly, major derail if somehow Yoel turns on a win here. I mean, what would that do when you look back in retrospect, okay? And you say, hey, we had to put somebody in here. We went with the best option we had, and we ended up really screwing over. I mean, not screwing over, but I mean, it would really tarnish Israel's rise. I mean, there is a huge calculated risk here for everyone involved, but from a promotional standpoint, trying to build stars, you're asking a tall task here. If he loses to Yoel, how does it look to everyone else? Here's a guy that came in older, 2 losses, and unseated your champion. I'm all for putting fights together. I'm all for defending champions. The problem I have with this is we've seen champions sit for a really long time while divisions get rebuilt. And sometimes it's just not the time to push people into the fire to a degree.
And in my opinion, Yoel Romero, as a fighter, the imbalance in terms of wins and yet threat, how dangerous he is, off the chart. He is crazy dangerous. He can win this fight. Israel Adesanya really hasn't fought any real grapplers in the UFC yet, so we don't know how he handles this style. Almost no one fights like Yoel Romero in terms of explosiveness, power. The guy's extremely hard to hurt. I remember Luke Rockhold saying it was like hitting steel. So he's so incredibly dangerous. It wouldn't surprise me to see him pull off the upset here. It's not at all out of the realm of possibility. He's one of the most dangerous guys, pound for pound, anywhere, just because of the way he fights. Who the hell explodes like that and has his wrestling ability and can fly across the octagon? Not many people. So I think this is incredibly, incredibly dangerous for him.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have a really fun time breaking this one down. I'll say, watching Yoel this week, I've seen so much in his wrestling, grappling. He looks like he's going to go heavy on that, which, as a fan, I'm really keying in on and saying, okay, this is not a level of wrestler that Israel's really seen. Aside from that, I hope to God Kevin McDonald isn't refereeing this fight, because another thing that I don't think Romero gets enough credit for is he has this way of luring somebody in because they feel like, okay, he's almost finished. I can go in now. I can, 100% come in, and then he'll stun him. And a lot of times he turns the tide in a fight. And in this case, you've got a younger guy that maybe doesn't have all that veteran savvy against a guy that, I hate to say it, knows every veteran trick in the book. So I'm not saying it's going to be a poor fight or a bad fight. It's going to be a really exciting and good fight. I just think when you look at the way things have historically needed to be done to get to a championship, it's interesting. We're looking at 3 fights, because we'll transition over into Johanna versus Zhang, where I looked, man, a win over Michelle Watterson. A win over Michelle Watterson is not a title shot eliminator at this point. So I don't want to take anything away from Michelle Watterson, but I went back and looked. The only girl that ever beat her and fought for a title is Carolina, who we unceremoniously dumped out of the UFC last week, if you didn't listen to our show. And you've never had somebody beat Michelle Watterson and go on to a title contender. So it's another one of those things where you just feel like we're getting, I hate to say this, sometimes I feel like we're just getting title fights to put a title fight on the marquee because you got to sell a pay-per-view. And I'm not saying they're bad fights. I'm just saying they happen. Penny agreed. Nope. You can't dismiss it. Penny agreed. That's all that matters to me.
Totally, man. That timing was awesome.
Love you, sweetie.
Yeah, it's a little dog. Anyway, I happen to agree with you, and in some cases, I don't treat them universally. In some cases, I understand the perspective of the UFC based on who it is and who they have to work with right now. It's not a universal. It's not, no one should get a title shot coming off a loss. No one should get this ever. There's no hard and fast rule. Sometimes you just have to deal with the state of the division at the time you need a title fight, or to keep a fighter busy, or whatever it might be. And each case to me is individual, and they're not all good and they're not all bad.
This is why you see guys leave, 185. Essentially that's what happened. All the 185ers left and went to 205, and you went from, honestly, one of the most stacked divisions to one of the thinnest divisions. It's so strange. And not only that, we've seen, literally, we've seen the UFC let guys go. So it's kind of one of those things that really, a whole lot of things had to happen in all of these fights, truthfully. A whole lot of things had to happen that don't always happen, that really left us with, I guess, no matter how they plan out or panned, because obviously they don't plan anything, but somebody will be like, yes, they do. You just admitted it. Penny's not agreeing that it's all scripted and it's a ruse. It is entertainment, right? And we're going to be entertained by these fights at the end of the day. I just think when you look back and you see kind of how these things fell into place, it's odd to see entertainment drive championship matches more than actual, wins and losses and climbing ladders and, rankings for that matter, which are, pretty much made up kind of in a degree all on their own. When you start to look at entertainment-based championship fighting, I hate to say this, but the only thing I really think of is wrestling. What's the most entertaining match? Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Macho Man. Well, that's what we're gonna make. It's the most entertaining. There is nothing else to be concerned with. And I did see a couple fans echo that sentiment, that it's a bit wrestling-esque to do what they've had to do. But as you said, there's a lot of variables to it. Some of what they've had to do, their hand has really been forced to a degree.
Yeah. And I think in the case of Yoel Romero, it's forced. There's an exodus from the division. They needed a challenger when one dropped out in terms of Paulo Costa. Yoel Romero was available. In Jose Aldo, it was much more of a conscious choice. In Joanna Jędrzejczyk is much more of a conscious choice. But Joanna's a former champion that fans have a lot of stock in. We've seen what she can do. She's kind of getting back on the horse. So there are layers to all of the decisions that change everything. And you can support or not support, but you have to look at each one individually.
Did you just go full-blown Dana White? You can support or not support on me?
What? Is that what he said?
Well, he basically said, you can not buy it if you don't like it.
Yeah, no. But what I mean is to jam it all in the same category. This guy's coming off 2 losses. This guy's coming off 2 losses. Well, it's a very different circumstance in terms of the division and the steps that need to be taken and why and all those things. Very, very different. Very different. I wouldn't throw them all in the same category. I'm much more anti the Jose Aldo fight than I am the Yoel Romero fight, than I am the Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight. They're all different. And remember, Joanna at least coming off a win. You can say what you want about Michelle Waterson. She's at least coming off a win, and she's a former champion. So, like I said, just that idea of jamming these very different challengers into the same category, I don't agree with that.
Well, to wrap this up in the most hypocritical way possible, Jimmy, for entertainment, we had to bunch all these things together. We had to have a show to talk about something.
Yeah, totally.
So,
yeah, we're guilty of the exact same thing. I mean, in the end, we're all just
we're all just guilty.
Yeah.
And you ruin fights by putting up the thumbnails of the fight, which I thought was really interesting.
That is hilarious to me. I had somebody write me and go, "Man, why do you put the thumbnails? Because it gives it away." And I'm like, "Why are you looking for a post-fight breakdown if you don't know what happened? Like, you're looking for a post-fight." It was just insane to me. It was almost like I put that out before the fight happened or something and ruined it. And I was like, you're looking for a post-fight breakdown. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm looking for a car crash compilation, and then I'm getting mad when the cars crash in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, you're giving away that the car crashed. Well, isn't that what you're looking for? It's insane. I've given up trying to figure out a lot of that.
We kid because we care. And apparently we sound exactly alike. So there at least is a little bit of acknowledgement to the old comment section of all the things we constantly hear. We sound alike. We sound like Joe Rogan. We ruin fights by putting up thumbnails. You need to have someone.
You sound like Joe Rogan? Because I'm constantly told I sound like Joe Rogan. If people say we sound the same, you must sound like Joe Rogan.
I'm not going to lie to you. I got one last week.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
It is. I mean, you know what I think it is? Honest to God, if somebody really wants to know what I personally believe it is, Jimmy and I have the same microphone. Now, I'm not saying microphones make you sound the same, but I'm telling you, not only do we have the same microphone, I think we probably, ironically enough, have the same wind screen. So there's a lot of things that happen here that would make our voices sound similar to begin with, and the fact that they may sound similar to just naturally sound similar, and then putting all these non-variables in, like if I used my other microphone, I'd probably sound totally different. I'd sound like I was in a tin can. So I think that plays into it more than people know. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that make us sound similar. At the end of the day, all we hear is,
the more you know.
all we hear is, I'm an idiot, right? We sound alike, but they can distinguish the stupid comments made by me, and then sometimes Penny breaks in and helps people understand when you're talking. So,
yeah, apparently that's it. I have no idea.
At the end of the day, what we really need in this show is a dog and my stupid comments. And I think from there, we build off what we have, right?
Pretty much it. That's our foundation.
Who else is going to do a preview of a preview that will probably be longer than the actual preview of UFC 248 that we will bring to you tomorrow? Aside from that, guys, we appreciate you checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more commentary.